And it's Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio, our weekly Army football huddle. 4 games in the books, all victories for the Black Knights. They head out to Indiana to play Ball State on Saturday. And to talk about that, we have calling in from Huntsville, Alabama, and the Beat Navy studio, Colonel Sam Houston from the West Point class of '87. Colonel, how are you tonight?
I'm great, Ken. Enjoying the big role this season so far, and looking forward to keeping it going.
Very good. Richard Miller from calling in from Florida. How are you today from our SALRadio staff?
Very well, Ken. Very pumped up for this Army team. Off to a really good start. Hopefully, it keeps going.
Okay, and calling from Pelham, New York, my SALRadio colleague did a great job on our WVOX show today, and that is Jack McGuirk. Jack, how are you?
Doing very well, Ken. Army's having a great season. Let's see if they keep it going this weekend.
Okay, and calling in from the Philadelphia area, former Army football player from the class of 1992, Steve Chaloult. Steve, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Just recovering from a weekend of celebrating.
There's a lot to celebrate in Army's victory over Miami. Army got out ahead to a 7-0 lead on a 72-yard run by Christian Anderson. Miami had a field goal, but early in the second quarter, Christian Anderson ran 75 yards for a touchdown, and later Cole Talley hit a 21-yard field goal, so 17-3 for Army at the half, and then Army went 99 yards on a drive with a Christian Anderson 42-yard run from the 4-yard line, getting Army to midfield, and that being after a moment where Army went for first down on 4th down and got the first down. Steve shaking his head. Did I not tell that story correctly?
No, you told it correctly.
Okay, because I asked Coach Munkin about it. It's funny, in the press box after the game, the SID, Eric said, nobody asked about the 4th and 1 from the 10-yard line. So I asked him today, and Coach just said, if you can't make 3 feet for a first down, how good are you? And I just think he had a lot of confidence in Jacoby Buchanan on that play. He'd run Buchanan on all 3 prior downs for 9 yards, and Buchanan gave him the 2 on 4th and 1 from their own 10 when it's only a 17-3 lead. And if he had not made that, the game could have gone in a different direction, but Jacoby made it. He's, Mr. Reliable in the clutch in the offensive line. And then Atkins got the touchdown, and then Miami broke an 80-yard pass play in the 4th quarter. But Army held on to the ball after that for a 23-10 win. Sam, what was your assessment of the game?
A lot of good occurred in that game. There's no doubt about it. The evolution of Christian Anderson at the forefront. The kid has absolutely developed into a true triple option threat quarterback for Army, and his leadership, how smooth he is on the field. He doesn't seem to get rattled about much at all, which was one of the challenges that we noted from last season. He ran the midline option to perfection, obviously something that Miami of Ohio had not prepared for. They had prepared to stop the B-back, but then forgot about that midline option to the quarterback, because a 72 and a 75-yard touchdown run later, and Christian Anderson was already on his way to one of the greatest rushing efforts in Michie Stadium in Army history. So we take a look at the good. The good was the offense, time of possession, the rushing yardage. They did not complete a pass. So I credit that partly to Miami of Ohio having done a little bit of homework on expected option pass plays because they seemed to have at least some coverage. And then a couple of times they had enough pressure on the Army quarterback to make the throw a little less precise than it has been in the first 3 games. But it didn't hurt the team to not complete a pass. Special teams was great. They had a block punt and a deflected punt. And they're very fortunate that second one was deflected because the punter got creamed on that play. But there was one little blip on the radar for special teams. I'm sure it'll be corrected, and that is they missed an extra point. It bounced off the upright. But other than that, special teams was fantastic. Defense had a goal line stand, which, you know, if nothing else pumps a crowd up, it's a goal line stand by your defense. It's just incredible to behold. And this only a few games removed from the greatest defensive stop at the goal line in Army history, and that was last year's Army Navy game. But the defense also had a blip because, as you mentioned, in the fourth quarter, just when it looked like we were about to put Miami of Ohio out for good, what happens? They complete an 80-yard pass untouched into the end zone. That kind of stuff can't happen, especially when you have a team like Wake Forest coming to Michie Stadium next. And, you know, not to get into Wake Forest, but I just noted today on the schedules that Wake Forest actually has a bye week, the week before they come to Michie. That does not bode well, an extra week for them to prepare, and they're having a great season. But the game, the defining moment of the game came Christian Anderson, 3rd and long, in the shadow of the Army goal line, goes to his right, gets pummeled by 3 different Miami of Ohio players in the backfield, shakes and spins, reverses field, and runs for 42 yards on a 3rd and 18 for a first down that kept that 99-yard drive going. That was the play of the game. That was the backbreaking moment for Miami of Ohio. And my only other aberration that I just want to point out is you could see the gaps in the stands at Michie Stadium. Hey, folks, what is going on? 4-0 for the first time since 1996, and you still can't pack the stadium? Shameful. Great game, though. Great game on the Ball State.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised at. 24,045 was the announced attendance. And, you know, you had the cadets, you had, you know, kind of the parents, faculty, you know, people, you know, and the Army fans that live nearby. But I was very surprised there wasn't a bigger crowd. I mean, a lot of us remember how exciting the Miami game was 2 or 3 years ago. And I was very surprised by not more of a crowd there. I don't know if there's just hesitation about people going to events, but it was disappointing. Steve Chaloult, what was your assessment of the game?
So Sam summed that up pretty well. The interesting things that I saw offensively, the 2 long touchdowns from Anderson, same play, same formation. I actually thought the first play, and I'd have to see the replay of it. I haven't seen it because I was there live. I thought it was an illegal formation. I thought they had too many people on the line of scrimmage, and I thought they only had 3 backs in the backfield. I'd have to take a look at that. But I have to disagree with Sam about the passing game. We didn't complete any, and it didn't hurt us. It actually, we threw the ball on first down a lot, and throwing the ball on first down, I've never been. I'm a guy, as you might have gathered from this. I like to stay on schedule. I like to be 2nd and 4. I like to be 2nd and 6, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2. You know, on a schedule where if we pop one for first, you know, a 6 yards on a first down and 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 4, that's the time to throw the ball. We're coming out 1st and 10, incomplete. Now we're 2nd and 10. We're not a 2nd and 10 team. And this is really first time this year that we did that. And it stalled a couple of drives for us. And then ultimately, when Christian got hurt, that was a 1st and 10 pass play when we should have been grinding it out. There was no reason for us not to just run this clock out We've been dominant up front. I mean, if you're dominant enough to go 4th down on your own 9-yard line, run the gosh dang ball when it's 1st down and 10 with a couple minutes left. And now Christian Anderson's not hurt. So that disappointed me a little bit in terms of play calling. I have lauded play calling thus far this year, and we took a misstep this year coming in, and it hurt us. It hurt us with Christian, and I'm disappointed because Christian was really coming into his own. I mean, leaps and bounds to the point where there was a lot of future ahead of us that we're going to be really excited about. Number 2, Wake Forest. I'm not as worried about Wisconsin as I am Wake Forest. I saw them play against Virginia. That's a heck of a ball team.
Yeah.
And lastly, I made mention that the Miami of Ohio coach was pandering to the referees in his press conference. We was talking about how gritty and how we fought to everything and bit at the heels and everything else. And it kind of worked because we had more personal fouls called against us in this game, I think, than we did all last year. So, and it was there was just a ridiculous horse collar call against us where Cockrell just grabbed a hold of the jersey and he is such a man's man. That person spun around like he was a top, and they thought the only thing it could have been was a horse collar, and it wasn't. So there were some things we got to work on. I'm a little bit fired up on play calling. It's a win. A win is a win. I think we're going to be okay going into Ball State. I think we're getting healthier on the offensive line coming up. Things are on schedule for certain players to come back. So I'm excited about that, but we became two-dimensional with Tyre, and we're very conservative in our play calling, and it hurts us.
Okay. And one of the things that I asked Coach Munkin today in the press conference, a couple of things real quick. One, I asked him about Christian Anderson's status, and Coach said that nothing broken, but very sore day to day. And I kind of think that we may see a different starter on Saturday. And
no doubt we're going to see a different starter on Saturday.
Now, what I asked about, because obviously the next player up would be Tyler, that I did ask Coach about Jabari Laws. He's played the last series in 2 of the games this year, and he's wearing the big brace, coming back from the ACL injuries. He had such a great sophomore year when he got a chance to play until he got hurt. And Coach said he's ready to go to be a starter or to play extensively if called upon. So it's sort of an option. I don't think they'll go that direction unless he looks really good in practice, and we'll see what, we don't get to see the practice to tell. So we'll see. Richard Miller, take us through a couple of the big games last week that you were tracking in the top 25. There were some big ones. Steve mentioned the big win by Wake Forest over Virginia. Big win for Notre Dame over Wisconsin, and a few others.
As far as those games go, Notre Dame is proving to 4-0. They are ranked number 12th in the country. Number 18, Wisconsin is 1-2, a 41-13 victory. Number 6, Penn State, 38-17 over Villanova. Penn State, ranked number 6 in the country, is now 4-0 on the season. Villanova is 3-1 on the season. The number 2, Georgia Bulldogs, they do a number on Vanderbilt. Georgia goes to 4-0, a 62-0 victory over Vanderbilt. Number 17, Coastal Carolina, 53-3 over Massachusetts. Coastal Carolina is 4-0. Massachusetts is 0-4. How about a double overtime game where NC State defeats Clemson 27-21. North Carolina State's 3-1, while number 9 Clemson is 2-2 on the season. Also, you have Colorado State and number 5 Iowa. Number 5 Iowa goes to 4-0 on the season. Colorado State is 1-3 on the season. A 24-14 victory for Iowa over Colorado State. Baylor improves to 4-0, defeating number 14 Iowa State 31-29. Baylor is 4-0. Iowa State is 500 at 2-2. Number 19 Michigan Wolverines are 4-0 on the season. A 20-13 victory over Rutgers. Rutgers is 3-0, 3-1 on the season. Pardon me, and number 19 Michigan is 4-0 on the season. Number 16 Arkansas. Number 7 Texas A&M. Arkansas wins 20-10. Arkansas is 4-0 on the season, while Texas A&M is 3-1 on the season. Number 23 Auburn, a 34-24 victory over Georgia State. Georgia State is now gone to 1-3 on the season, while Auburn improves to 3-1. Number 24, the UCLA Bruins, 35-24 over Stanford. Stanford's 2-2, while UCLA improves to 3-1 on the season. Kansas State and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State a 31-21 victory over Kansas State. Oklahoma State is now 4-0 on the season, while Kansas State is 3-1. Overtime game at Michigan State, number 20 in the country, improves to 23-20 over Nebraska with a 23-20 victory for Michigan State. Michigan State's 4-0, while Nebraska goes to 2-3. And number 11 Florida, 3-1. A 3-1 record now with a 38-14 victory over Tennessee. Tennessee goes to 2-2 on the season. Number 10 Ohio State does put a number on Argonne. Number 10 Ohio State is a 59-7 victory over Argonne. Georgia Tech defeats North Carolina 45 to 22. That's number 21 North Carolina. Both teams are 2-2 on the season. The Alabama Crimson Tide are 4-0 on the season with a 63-14 victory over Southern Miss. Southern Miss is 1-3 on the season. The Crimson Tide go to 4-0 on the season. Number 4 Oklahoma, 16-13 victory over West Virginia. West Virginia is now 500 at 2-2, while number 4 Oklahoma is 4-0 on the season. Number 15 BYU, 35-27 over South Florida. South Florida is 1-3 on the season, while BYU is 4-0. Number 3 Oregon, a 41-19 victory over Arizona. Oregon improves to 4-0 on the season, while Arizona has played 4 games and they have an 0-4 record. They've lost all 4 games. And the last game on the list, number 22, Fresno State, 38-30 over UNLV. Fresno State is 4-1 on the season, while UNLV drops to 0-4 on the season.
Very good. Thank you, Richard. And, one other game, Syracuse on Friday night held off Liberty 24-21. Syracuse had a lead in that game. It had to kick a field goal in the last moments, 35 yards. To tie that. Army's going to play Liberty on Thanksgiving weekend. Another, I would say, one of the tough games coming up this season in the second half. Now, on to this week's business, which is a trip to Muncie, Indiana to play Ball State. And Ball State is 1-3. They got an opening week win over Western Illinois. But since then, they've lost 44-13 at Penn State. They lost at Wyoming by a big score, 45-12, a game you would think they would have played a little closer. And then this past week, they lost at home to a good Toledo Rockets team, 22-12. So they're struggling. They're going to be clawing for a victory on Saturday when Army comes in. And we haven't heard from Jack McGuirk. Jack McGuirk down there.
How you doing?
So first, tell us, what games did you watch this week? What games stood out to you? Before we get to Navy and Air Force, we'll get to them in a second.
Okay, well, the one I kept an eye on, of course, was that Army game. It was, a heck of a game for Christian Anderson, who it was a history-making game for him. The actual record in Army for the most rushing yards by an Army quarterback in a single game was actually set in 2017, 265 yards. That was Ahmad Bradshaw. So it was a hell of a game there. not having much of a passing game didn't hurt Army at all. And it's also, Army makes a good point. It's always good to start, score first in these games. And Army has outscored opponents this season in the first quarter, 35-0, which is pretty impressive. And they've held on to the ball a lot. In fact, one name you haven't heard about a lot is the kicker, the Army kicker, who, when he had this punt in this game, it was the first one he's had in 9 quarters. So Army's done a great job controlling the ball.
I mean, the punter, Zach Harding.
Zach Harding, yes.
He had to punt 5 times. Not Coach Monken wasn't accustomed to that, but he averaged 49.8 yards a punt.
That's right.
And Cole Talley did get a field goal, 21 yards that helped in the second quarter. But he hit a goalpost on 1 PAT, which is an issue. I was a place kicker in high school, so I'm part of the place kickers union. And I think that happens, but a concern. I think the good thing is they're getting field goal production, and in the past they haven't had confidence that they could make a clutch field goal when they needed it. But now they got 2 kickers that can make the kick on that. So good points there, Jack. Ball State, they've been good under Mike New, class of '94. He's been the head coach since 2016. These Mid-America Conference teams had been tough games for Army. Really in the Rich Ellerson era, I'd say trips to Northern Illinois, Ball State, Kent State, Miami were all tough games for Army, but this could be an opportunity for Army to go in and run the offense and play solid defense. What do you see in Ball State, Sam?
First, I meant to do this when I talked a minute ago. I want to give a shout out to the Army Sprint football team. They are 2-0 now. They basically routed their last opponent this past Friday. But what's most important is this week is the Star Game week. Army Sprint will host Navy at West Point. They're looking to make it 3 in a row. And go Army Sprint, formerly 150s, beat Navy. We're really rooting for you guys.
Do you know which day and time that is?
I believe the game will be on. Wow, I'm not sure. I believe the game will be on Friday because typically the Sprint team does not play at a time that overlaps the big team. So it's probably a Friday game.
Yeah, we'll check and put it in the comment.
Schedule.
So,
October 2nd.
We're sure you can look that up for us and we'll check it. One thing I noticed in looking at the stats on Ball State is that they're giving up 121 more yards than they're generating. They're averaging 317, 131 rushing, which isn't strong. They're passing for 186. Opponents are rushing 190 yards against them and getting 248 yards passing. So they're at 120 yard per game deficit on yards gained. And a lot of that could have been at Penn State. I'm just surprised they lost that badly to Wyoming.
Well, first off, Wyoming is undefeated this year, so I'm not. And something to a precautionary tale about this weekend. On paper, you think Ball State is not going to be a tough opponent because of what their record is, the scores of the games they played. I want to remind everyone out there in Army fan land, Ball State's the reigning MAC champion. They've had a disappointing season this season so far. So the level of competition has weighed heavily into what their current record is and why there is such a disparity in yardage gain between what they've gained and what their opponents have gained. I would not allow ourselves to be deceived by what could be expected out of Ball State. They are a defending champion that wants to play like a defending champion, and they're looking to right the ship. So this is not a game to look ahead to Wisconsin on or look ahead to having a little bit of time off of the bye week. I expect Ball State to show up ready to play. And I expect them to have made some adjustments and changes coming off of their last game and looking ahead to Army to be ready to punch Army in the mouth and claim their turf, because this one is at Ball State. So I do not expect this game to be anything but a slugfest, because Ball State wants to make a statement that, hey, we won the MAC last year for a reason. We're the same team, and we're going to play like it, and we're going to reclaim our season. And that's what they want to do. So be careful. They call certain games a trap game. This could be a trap game for sure. If you get lost in statistics in Ball State's record, it's on their turf. They're angry. They're fired up. They want to right the ship, and they don't care if Army's 4-0. They don't care if Army's America's team. They want to beat Army, and they're going to come out to beat Army. So that's what I expect.
Yeah, they were 7-1 last year in the Mid-America Conference, so they have a strong team. We'll see. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to. They have a home game. They want to win. They want to get their season turned around, and so Army's going to have quite a challenge. Steve Chaloult, what do you think about Army's trip to Muncie, Indiana?
So defensively, up front, they're kind of the polar opposite of Miami of Ohio. Miami, Ohio is very young up front and inexperienced. Ball State is very experienced, and they're all juniors, redshirt juniors, and seniors up front. And they run 290 and above across the board. They run an odd front, so not odd as in unique, but odd as in a 50. So you're going to have a nose guard. So not having our starting in the last two teams, we were an even front. So we weren't covered on the nose all the time. We're going to be more covered on the nose here. So Knapp's going to have to control the line of scrimmage. And it gets a little bit different snapping the ball with a 302-pound nose guard above, right on your nose. Your footwork gets a little bit different. And so penetration and at the point of attack, we're going to have to watch that. It makes it a little bit easier if the tackles are outside for us to read with the fullback to see, the handoff read. It gives us a little bit more time than if they're over the outside shoulder of the guard. So it bodes a little bit better towards the triple option. They're going to be they're a very well seasoned team, and they're going to give us a fight. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. We have no easy opponents. The fact that we are even considering going on the road and beating a MAC team is new to us, because that didn't happen for the longest time. So, and I think we might be looking. We now are such. We have visions of being giant killers going into Oklahoma, going into Michigan, that we're looking. As fans, I don't think the team is, but we're looking, say, all right, we'll get by Ball State. We got a bye week, and then we're going to go into Wisconsin and do a number. We've got a task at hand that we got to play here. We've got a lot of disruption on the front, the front offensive line, and we're going to have an inexperienced quarterback. So we got to get locked in and dialed in, and get ready to play hard, because they're going to come at us.
Yeah, and it's going to be a different dynamic for Ball State, not knowing who the Army quarterback is going to be. They're going to have to prepare, which means watching the tapes on Tyree Tyler from the opening game against Georgia State, and then from last season, and then possibly taking out a tape of Jabari Laws from his sophomore year to take a look at what he did. Playing. They should take a look at the Air Force game in the fourth quarter, some of the plays that he made. Jack McGuirk, now it's your chance to tell us about the games this past week for the Naval Academy and the Air Force Academy.
All right, I'll start with Air Force. They improved to 3-1. They had a 31-7 win over Florida Atlantic. They have 516 total yards offense, 446 rushing, which is a season high for Air Force. Zeke Daniels led the team with 164 yards rushing, and had 2 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, both in the first quarter, a 4-yard run and a 94-yard touchdown run, which was an academy record there, Air Force Academy record. And gave the Falcons a 14-0 lead at the end of the first quarter. Brad Roberts had 77 yards rushing, including a 24-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. Mika Davis rushed for 93 yards, had a 6-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. Altogether, 6 Falcon players recorded at least 5 carries. Brad Roberts, Hazik Daniels, Mika Davis, Omar Fata, Emmanuel Michel, and Dane Kinnaman. So their triple option offense was running on all cylinders in this game. On defense, Falcons held FAU to 219 yards total offense, just 141 rushing, 78 passing. Sophomore linebacker Alec Mock led the team, 7 tackles. Trey Bug, the third, Trey Taylor, had 4 tackles each. Taylor also had a sack in the game. So great game for Air Force. They're going to be traveling to Albuquerque this weekend to take on New Mexico, another Mountain West opponent there. So a big conference game for Air Force coming up. And going on to Navy, I think it was last week, Steve, I believe, said that he thought Navy was going to beat Houston. And you know what? They played pretty well in the first half, but ultimately it was a 28-20 loss to Houston. Midshipman had 300 yards total offense, 202 rushing, 98 passing. Xavier Arnline led the team 64 yards rushing, including a 40-yard touchdown run, giving Navy a 7-0 lead early in the first quarter. Senior fullback Isaac Ruos rushed for 55 yards, had a 1-yard carry with 52 seconds left in the half. Navy had a 17-7 lead at halftime, but there was a guy on Houston, Marcus Jones, who really gave Navy a hard time. In the first quarter, he returned a punt 73 yards for a touchdown, tying the score at 7-7. And then in the third quarter, Houston actually scored 21 unanswered points in the second half, which included a big 47-yard touchdown reception by Marcus Jones. Navy actually closed within 8 points with 6:12 left on a 36-yard field goal by Bijan Nichols. And they got the ball back with a chance to tie with 3:02 left. On 2nd and 7, Navy, for the Navy 28, Chance Warren, slot back, got behind the Houston defense, but was unable to hang on to the pass from the backup quarterback who was in at that time, Messiah Maynor. Maynor was then sacked on the 3rd down. And 4th and 18, he completed a pass to Mark Walker for 15 yards, coming up short of the first down, turning the ball over. Ultimately, Houston won the game. Diego Fago and John Marshall led the Navy defense with 9 tackles each, while Derek Parrish had 12 stops and Damian Williams 10 for Houston. So up next, Navy's going to be hosting University of Central Florida this Saturday. It's going to be at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. But Navy 0-3, so they're going to be trying to get their first win at home this week, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Any thoughts on the Air Force Academy, who looks like they're going to could really shape up to be an interesting and challenging game down in Arlington, Texas in November. Sam, what's your thought on Air Force and the struggle that Navy is having this season?
First, with Air Force, I wasn't surprised at all by the game with Florida Atlantic. I expected Air Force to dominate the game. Air Force was embarrassed last week by allowing Utah State to come back in the second half and torch them to leave Falcon Stadium with a victory. And so they had a chip on their shoulder and they played like it. So everything that Air Force did to Florida Atlantic was exactly what I expected. And as much as I ding on the Zoomies, I'd never take away from the fact that they've got a pretty good team and they have some great players. They run the triple option. I've always thought that Air Force, of all 3 academies, year in, year out, is the best at running the full triple option. And Zeke Daniels has evolved as a pretty good triple option passer as well. He throws with good accuracy, and that keeps teams off balance. And it sets up, and it's set up by the fact that they do run a pretty good triple option attack that utilizes both the B back and the slot backs and the quarterbacks, which is, your main threats all around on both the interior and on the perimeter. So, Air Force's defense, well, again, last week they got embarrassed and they had a chip on their shoulder to prove that that wasn't going to happen 2 games in a row. So they really did dominate Florida Atlantic pretty good. And I don't think that game was ever in question from the first snap. So they may be tested a little bit more by New Mexico. I don't know. I already saw the line and saw that Air Force is favored, I think by 10.5 points. But we'll see. It is an away game. It's at New Mexico. It's a Mountain West Conference game, and I'm sure that New Mexico wants to win just as much as Air Force does. So we'll see what happens. Now, as far as Navy is concerned, hey, for the first half, and I remember at the end of the game, I actually texted Steve and said, hey, for one half, you were right. Navy came out in the first half, and they actually executed Navy football. They ran the ball well. They kept Houston off balance. They were aided and abetted by a lot of Houston mistakes and miscues. And when I say a lot, I think I'd need both hands to count the number of drop passes that occurred in the first half. There was a missed field goal at the end of the first half, a chip shot field goal, I believe, that went wide right. And just before that, a Houston receiver was hit in the back of the end zone and came down out of bounds with what would have been a touchdown that would have made it 17-14 at the half. So, but, and you could see that Houston's coach was livid at his players and on the sideline, at the sideline reporter. I wouldn't have wanted to be the sideline reporter trying to talk to him at the end of halftime. And I wish I could have been a fly on the wall to hear what was said to the Houston team at halftime, because I'm sure the paint is still peeling off of that locker room right now from whatever blistering he gave the team. Because when they came out, they turned the lights off on Navy, and 90% of Navy's rushing yards came in the first half. Navy literally got completely shut down in the second half by Houston, and Houston played Houston ball. That's why Houston was favored by 20 points. But favoring by 20 points was based on Houston playing for 60 minutes, not for 30 minutes. Well, that 30 minutes was enough to come back and win the game. Navy's got real problems, and they're not going away. It looked just a little bit like they had righted the ship some for one half, but those same problems came back in the second half. So they're going to have to go back to the drawing board, because UCF is not going to be any easier than Houston, even if it is a home game for Navy.
Okay. Yeah, UCF is going to be tough for them. Steve Chaloult, any thoughts on Air Force or Navy at this point in the season?
Yeah, I mean, Air Force is going to be they're going to be a tough opponent this year for a number of reasons, and they're generally extremely well coached, and they just get good athletes for a number of different reasons, and they put arm distance away from West Point in terms of recruiting for those very reasons, and they pull out all the stops when it comes to recruiting and bad-mouthing Army recruits, or bad-mouthing the coaching staff and the life you have in the Army, and you're all gonna die a fiery death and all that stuff. It's ridiculous how that happens. But they get good players and they're well coached. Navy, I still have a ton of faith in Coach Niumatalolo. And he'll have them ready as it gets further and further along. It's not going to be easy for us in MetLife Stadium. It's not going to be easy at all. So we just got to keep controlling our own destiny and our own business and doing what we need to do. But it's not going to get easier, and unfortunately, it's not going to get any easier for them. But I watched some of that game, and I felt that they played inspired, and they'll probably play 3 quarters of inspired ball this week, and then they'll put it all together and win a couple ball games. They're not a poorly. I don't know what the problem is. I mean, they got a good coaching staff, and they'll get there. Hopefully they don't peak in December is what I'm worried about, but I'm a worrier.
Okay,
Not
okay.
a warrior, but a warrior.
Yeah, and hey, Ken, one comment, Steve made me think of something that I meant to bring up last week. And Steve may have a little more insight on this as well. When he was talking about the Air Force recruiting and the athletes that they have, I read something just in the past 2 weeks, which I think smacks of more Air Force shenanigans, if it's true. So like I throw that disclaimer out there. You Air Force fans, I know you don't like me anyway. So I put out there that if it's true, all right. So this is what I heard. What I heard is that Coach Calhoun is petitioning the Air Force leadership to allow every football player to have 9 semesters at Air Force Academy. And it's predicated on the fact that he does not like to play his Zoomy plebes, and he wants to give everyone an extra semester of development so that they can have 1 extra semester of eligibility in NCAA football. If that's true, again, I think it's despicable.
Well, that's I don't know how that fits in the NCAA or with the Air Force, in the thought that that's taxpayer money that goes into paying for those.
Hey, it was taxpayer money that paid for those the staybacks or whatever they called them last year.
Turnbacks.
The turnbacks, 31 players. Okay, so would you be happy if your taxpayer dollars was supposed to pay for a program only to find out that it got turned back for something else, or it wasn't going towards the actual product that it was supposed to be developing? Again, I saw this. I'm going to have to go back and look it up. So if I am completely wrong about this topic, next time we huddle, I will apologize and I will take it all back. But I know I read an article in the past 2 weeks that was on this exact topic, and it would, if it is true and Coach Calhoun got his way, that every time we play Air Force, either academy, the firsties on the Air Force squad will all be in their 9th semester at the Air Force Academy for 1 extra semester of football development.
Well, I'm sure a lot of schools around the NCAA would like to be able to do that. And
yeah, but they're not a service academy, Ken. Come on now.
And Service Academy is preparation to serve as officers in the U.S. military. The U.S. military needs those officers. And so that's, why don't we check that out, and we'll discuss it more next week if that happens to be the case. I think that would kind of stretch the NCAA rulings, because I think everybody else would want to do something similar.
I
don't think it would matter to the NCAA, because that's just a redshirt year. So I wouldn't think it would affect that. I have not heard that, Sam. I haven't. And if that happened for one service academy, that would have to be opened up to the rest of them. I would think we wouldn't, none of us would go quietly into the night on that, for sure.
Does the Air Force Academy, I assume they have a prep school there?
They do.
So, because that's what, a lot of athletes at all 3 academies go to prep school for a year before they enter the formal academy. Richard, you had a comment?
Yeah, I would also be wondering, what if they would also like miss a year? Like, let's say that they would be if they're like suspended or something happens that's beyond their control, they should actually be have that option. If they
Richard, you're right. What happens is, if a player is severely injured, like Jabari Law's missed an entire year to an injury, they can petition for that player to have another season of eligibility.
Yeah,
and that happens quite often. And my understanding, and you gentlemen are both alumni, so you can tell the specifics, that it's not uncommon for a cadet at West Point who is injured in so it could be a training accident, could be an athletics event, something else, to go home and recuperate, and then come back at the beginning of the next semester, because they say it's very hard to recuperate from, let's say, a broken leg while you're at West Point. And
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's absolutely true. But remember, a commissioning requirement from a service academy is based upon you meeting your the officer professional development requirements and passing through the gate for each officer professional development requirement and the academic requirements that you have to meet your threshold for graduation. And the requirement at the academy is that it's a 4-year process. So there has to be an extenuating circumstance involved in order to have someone remain at the academy for an extra semester, or in the instance that you're talking about, like, you know, in my class, we definitely had a couple of classmates who had mishaps of some kind while they were going through the journey of being a cadet, and they came back and actually graduated with the class of 88 instead of the class of 87. Now, we still kind of consider them our classmates because of everything we went through together, but technically, when you look at the AOG database, you'll find that they come up as class of 88 instead of 87. So,
Okay.
you know, it's true for the football players too. I mean, the football players, they have the exact same commissioning and academic requirements that every other cadet has. And the expectation when they arrive is that they're going to graduate in 4 years. And I'll leave it at that, because I think I heard Steve chime in, so I'm going to let him talk.
Yeah, and if you look it up, and Jack, you're usually good at this, or Richard, if you look up the name Eddie Schultz, he was a 5-year letterman for Army football. He had a successful bout with cancer and came back, and he lettered 5 years for Army football, and so it does happen with those extenuating circumstances.
Yeah. Hey, I want to talk about something I asked Coach Monken about. He brought it up Saturday in about when they go for a first down on fourth down, on field goal attempts, on punts, that they're using a database of analytics for that process. So I got a chance to ask Coach Monken a little bit more about it today. So, you know, we do similar things in business. And he talked about that they have a customized sample of results for different situations. And then, you know, versus I asked him, well, is the database a sample based on 1,000 football games? He said, no, it's customized to Army's situations that they're going to come up in. And then just listening to Mark Packard's show today on Sirius Radio, he was talking with a coach about that same thing, that they spend an hour on Thursdays going over the data analytics on decisions they may use it for certain situations in the game. Have any experience with that? Steve's got his hand up.
Yeah, so I have a lot of experience with the data analytics program that the Army team uses. Matter of fact, I'm on the board of directors of the Army Football Club, and we pay for that data. So we help the team and help the athletic department with that. Now, the interesting thing about it is, I'm not going to share this. So I'll share it offline with you guys later on, but there is a very interesting caveat of this whole thing. But we've been using that. They've been using it for a number of years now. It was a relatively unknown company when it first came out. They approached Army, and we were one of the first of the undertakers of that particular program. And now they're much more across more programs, and we're locked in. We're in the midst of year one of another 3-year contract with this company.
Very good. I guess it helps when you've got a lot of confidence in a fullback named Jacoby Buchanan. That's like 260 pounds.
Yeah.
And it also helps when you walk and you hear a clicking noise. Click, 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 click. That takes a lot. It's something of steel. Something definitely of steel.
Yeah. And, you know, another thing about analytics is that it can make a great drinking game when you're watching the games and listening to the announcers. You know, you take a shot every time you hear them say analytics. So sometimes it just gets said too often because you're having trouble standing at the end of the game after all of that.
That's right.
But Ken, I got to bring it. Maybe you were going to bring this up, but I would be remiss if we do this entire huddle and not talk about this topic. And it just came to me just a second ago.
Go ahead.
Last week, the University of Tennessee came out
I heard about this.
and canceled their game with Army for next season, and they made no bones about it. They canceled it because they were worried about playing Army at the point on their schedule next week and that they would lose the game. And they replaced them with Akron for their homecoming, and they paid Army $500,000 to get out of the game. This decision was so ridiculous that even Paul Feinbaum, a UT grad, has eviscerated his alma mater over being the chickens that they were and canceling out on Army next season. So I'd be interested to hear some of the comments of our panel about this absolute travesty on the part of the volunteers who claim to be from Rocky Top.
Oh my.
Well, it gets worse when you consider their stadium, the 100,000 seat Neyland Stadium, is named for a West Point graduate who became one of their coaches.
Absolutely. Their most successful coach of all time.
Oh, and oh, by the way, they had to cancel an event where we were going to celebrate Medal of Honor winners. That event is no longer going to happen. There was going to be quite a bit of around it. I mean, I don't. You know what? Should we spend any time on it? I mean, Tennessee. It's hard to kick a program when they're down. I mean, they'll just continue to make bad decisions, whether it be Philip Fulmer, whether it be their coaching decisions, and it's a comment. I have a very close friend who's a Tennessee fan, and he's a West Point grad, and he's just upside down on everything. Whether or not John Gruden's coming, he's not coming. It's been an absolute circus, and this is the end. This is the finale of it. It's just been terrible.
I agree. I've got family members who are Tennessee grads, including my oldest nephew, who's a captain down at Fort Sam Houston right now, after graduating from their Army ROTC program. But the thing is you take a look at Tennessee's record the last two times they played Army at Neyland Stadium. It might have been a while ago. It might have been back when I was a cadet, but it's 0-1-1. And those two games, especially the loss, when Army rolled into Neyland in fall of '86 and beat University of Tennessee in front of those very same 100,000 fans, that was that had direct lineage to Johnny Majors getting fired from University of Tennessee. So the track record with Tennessee playing Army at home is not good. And with Army on the resurgence and the way they're playing this season, and the way they have taken some major Power 5 teams to the wire, hey, you know what? Okay, I get it, guys. You got a little scared. You're going to replace them with Akron. So my hope is that Akron, I hope the Zips come in and zip your rear ends in Neyland Stadium next fall for this ridiculous decision.
Yeah, we'll have to see where Army can reschedule another game. It could add another home game to the Mikey Stadium schedule next season. But I think a lot of us were looking forward to going down to Tennessee and seeing the campus and the environment there, such as some of the other trips to some of the Power 5 schools like Oklahoma and Michigan, and coming up in a couple of weeks, Wisconsin. Hey, I just want to spend a moment on the Army defense and recognize Spencer Jones, a sophomore inside linebacker, had another 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss in the game. And Andre Carter, the outside linebacker, had 3 tackles and 1 great tackle for loss. I believe he's at 4.5 on the season. One of the leaders, 5.5.
5.5. He got another sack, so he's got 5.5 in the season.
So, he is starting to stand out as an impact player that you got to keep your eye on. The offense has to make a special blocking scheme, make sure that he's not loose. His athletic ability and his size, the wingspan are all starting to show themselves as he's becoming, I think, one of the standout players on the Army defense.
Yeah, last week I called out Spencer Jones. I said, Spencer Jones is my unsung hero of the Army defense, and he really is. He's a great player. He's a humble player, and he's playing what I think has got to be the toughest position to play on defense. And it was really wonderful during the Miami of Ohio game to hear him get some love from the announcers, because they went off on a couple of minutes talking about Spencer Jones and his play on the field. And it's about time the kid got some recognition for what he's done. He filled some gigantic shoes, John Radigan, who in turn filled some gigantic shoes of Cole Christensen. So there is a lineage of great middle linebacker play under the Monken era, going back to Temp and those guys who really have been a bulwark of making sure the defensive play is stout in the middle. And Spencer Jones is filling in right well. I'm so happy the guy's a yearling. He's got a few more years to play. I love that.
And Coach Monken recognized the play Markel Broughton, the captain and safety, 6 tackles in the game. He said how he has really matured into a terrific player. Let's let Richard Miller tell us what the top 10 games are going into this weekend. And then we'll go do our forecast of Army versus Ball State.
As far as the top the top 10 games coming up in college football this weekend. Let's see. Number 9 Notre Dame will be taking on Cincinnati at 2:30. Number 14 Michigan will be taking on Wisconsin at 12 o'clock. Also, you have number 24 Wake Forest taking on Louisville. Number 2 Georgia will be taking on Arkansas. On Friday, Iowa is taking Maryland. That's an 8 o'clock game. Number 13 BYU is taking on Utah State. That will be a 9 o'clock game. Also, a little bit. Those are some of the games. Also, as well. Let's see what else. Number 9 Notre Dame will be taking on Cincinnati at 2:30. Number 11 Ohio State will be taking on Rutgers at 3:30. Number 1 Alabama is taking on Mississippi at 3:30. Number 23 NC State will be taking on Louisiana Tech. That's a 6 o'clock game. Number 4 Penn State will be taking on Indiana. That's a 7:30 game. Number 25 Clemson will be taking on Boston College, also a 7:30 game. Number 19 Oklahoma State is taking on Baylor. Number 18 Fresno State will be taking on Hawaii at 11 p.m. Number 20 UCLA will be taking on Arizona State 10:30. 9 o'clock, number 22 Auburn will be taking on LSU. Number 25 Clemson is taking on Boston College at 7:30. Oklahoma State and Baylor, 21 Baylor, 19 Oklahoma State, 7 o'clock game. Number 10 Florida taking on Kentucky, a 6 o'clock game. Oregon will be taking on Stanford at 3:30. Oregon is ranked number 3 in the country. Oklahoma, number 6, will be taking on Kansas State, also a 3:30 game. Louisiana Monroe will be taking on Coastal Carolina, number 16 Coastal Carolina. That will be a 2:30 game. Cincinnati and Notre Dame, number 7 Cincinnati against number 9 Notre Dame, also a 2:30 game. Number 24 Wake Forest taking on Louisville is a 12:30 game.
I know it'd be a good one. Wake Forest and Louisville and Notre Dame hosting Cincinnati should be a good one. Jack, what did the Naval Academy and Air Force have?
Air Force is taking on
Bless you.
Thank you.
Is at home against UCF.
Okay, very good. Well, let's go to our lightning round and talk about scores on Army's trip to Muncie, Indiana to play Ball State. Richard, what do you see this week?
I see this week I think it's going to be a very tough game for Army. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to actually keep up, but eventually in the end, if it is, it's going to be a close game. Ball State. Am I even convinced that Ball State's going to actually show up? This is going to be, I think, I'm going to say a close Army victory. I think Army stays undefeated one more week. I'm going to go Army 28 in overtime. I think
31-28 in overtime. Okay, Richard.
yes.
Okay, and we're going to start publishing though. That seems to be the new thing to do, is to publish teams these forecasts. Okay, Steve, I'm going to go to you because you had your hand up.
No, I was just coming with the whole overtime thing. Richard got me crazy. Richard, I'm gonna disagree with you. Army's gonna go undefeated for 2 more weeks.
Ooh.
Oh,
They've got a bye week after, Richard. Let's not overlook the bye week. Army,
that's right. The bye week.
thank you. And then we will beat Wisconsin, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Army wins 24-17, 24-17. They win by a touchdown. But they're not going to. Their offense isn't going to be as explosive because we're going to be held back a little bit with quarterback play. But we'll find a way. We'll have either a special teams or a defensive touchdown.
Okay, very good. 24-17 from Steve. Jack, what do you think?
I think, well, I just want to touch on the Tennessee thing. It was interesting. Tennessee was supposed to pay Army $1.4 million for the game, but instead they're paying a $500,000 buyout, and then they're going to pay Akron $1 million. So when you add those two up, you get $1.5 million. So they're actually spending more money to cancel the Army game and reschedule Akron than just play the game with Army. But on the Ball State, I like Army in this game. They're 7.5-point favorites in the game, and Ball State coming off those 3 losses: Penn State, Wyoming, and Toledo. Although big question with this one, it's going to be a slugfest, as Steve and Sam were saying. And what's the quarterback situation with Army? Are they going to have Jabari Laws, or what's going to happen there? But I like Army in this game. I'm going to say 24-21. It's going to be a close one.
Okay, so Jack signing up for 24-21. And Sam, your turn.
We're all thinking alike in this game. I agree completely with Steve. This one's it's gonna hinge upon the quarterback play for Army. And if Christian Anderson were healthy and was going to start this game, my prediction would be Army by 2 or 3 touchdowns. However, there is a significant drop-off in the level of execution of the triple option when Christian Anderson has not been on the field this season. And it's pretty dramatic and noticeable, to the point that it does affect offensive production on the scoreboard. So that being said, thank goodness that Army's defense is still Army's defense, because this game is going to be a lot closer than it needed to be. And I believe that in the end, it's going to be 21-14 Army.
21-14. Okay. Very good. Well, I would agree with everyone that the quarterback play, everyone's going to look at, see who runs out on the field for Army for this game. Whether it is Tyree Tyler, possibly Jabari Laws, possibly Jamel Jones. Coach Monken even mentioned, Kay Ballard is there, who's gone in. But I think it most likely will be Tyree Tyler. And the question is whether we might see multiple quarterbacks for Army in the game. Defense gave up that 80-yard touchdown. They gave up points, in the third quarter to Western Kentucky. So Ball State's going to be looking at those tapes and trying to figure out how they can do the same thing. Put that kind of play on the Army defense. They've struggled, but they want to win. They got to, they're 1-3. They really want to get their season back on track, and it's a home game for them. So I think Army's going to be, I kind of like Steve's score. I'm going to say it's going to be a little more dominant. I'll say 24-10. Army over Ball State, going to 5-0 on the season and getting a break before they go play Wisconsin. So any final thoughts?
I got two, Ken. Matt Lynch, who's a friend of ours who's watching online. He's from the Rhode Island Lynches, an incredible family. He says 35-17 Army. I just want to throw that out there. Number two,
35-17 from Matt Lynch.
from Matt Lynch from the Rhode Island Lynches. I'm going to, and here's a thought. People, the teams that have openings in the week we were going to play Tennessee include BYU, Notre Dame, Miami of Florida, not of Ohio, Virginia, Rutgers, and MTSU. So chew on that a little bit on who you'd like to see during that week.
MTSU, that is
Army Rutgers sounds like an
Tennessee State.
Oh boy.
Army Rutgers would be a heck of a ball game in terms of closeness. We made 500K. We don't have to get an airplane. We do it in a neutral site. Play at the Yale Bowl. I don't care. Let's do something fun.
Yes.
And Greg
Agreed.
Schiano's got Rutgers on the resurgent path again. So
As he does, as he always does.
be a good game. That would be a good game.
Very
Well,
good.
let's see what happens on that. That is an interesting question, an interesting perspective you brought up, Steve. Just saying, would Army, given the situation, prefer to play a home game or go out on the road to play one of the teams that you mentioned?
I will tell you, if they can get some scratch going out on the road like that, do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. I agree completely.
Yes.
I mean, it was going to be a road
Okay.
game anyway. I think that if they can score a major marquee game with what's available and do it on the road, it would certainly include a lot of money, and it would probably put Army on a nationally broadcast slot, so they would get a lot more exposure. So absolutely.
Okay, very good. Anything else?
National. I thought CBS Sports Network, that's not national.
Yes, every one of their home games is a national television.
Oh, okay.
game.
Well,
And,
it is, but you don't pick up like it at home. You pick up ABC, NBC, CBS,
Yeah.
and then you got to pay a little extra to have CBS Sports Network.
Well,
All right,
Yeah.
so
when I
it's on
had
CBS Sports Network, but
I
it is.
had CBS Sports Network when I was in New York.
Yeah.
And
I
I
know,
get
but-
CBS Sports Network down here.
It's just not quite the same
I got
audience
you.
size.
It's not the same audience.
Oh,
It's not it's not the national game. Yeah, it is nationally broadcast, but it's not a marquee national game.
oh.
It's the little eye. It's not the big
Yeah.
eye. Yeah.
That's why you don't see like Alabama and, Alabama Ole Miss is not going to be on CBS Sports Network. It's going to be on a major network. So, but my last thought, Ken, once again, hey, listen, everybody. If you don't know about Army Sprint Football, formerly 150s, Army Sprint Football is the most successful varsity sport in the history of West Point in terms of winning percentage. And this week is their star game week against Navy. The Sprint football team does stream their games live. So you can go on to the Army Sports webpage and you can find the Sprint football team and where to actually stream this game live. Show some love to Army Sprint as they beat Navy this week, and keep that star on their major A on their dress, on their gray jackets. So
Okay.
go Army Sprint, beat Navy.
And to quote a movie line from Rudy, John Favreau said, "He's so little."
Referring to Rudy.
Okay. I think we've had enough for tonight. I just want to do my weekly shout out to the 2 million veterans of the American Legion and the 330,000 members of our organization, the Sons of the American Legion, supporting America's veterans. And I'll look forward. We'll have reports from the game on Twitter at Sons Legion Radio, and we'll be talking to a number of the players this week. We'll have another chance to talk to Coach Monken on Thursday before they head out of town to the game in Indiana. And we will have the post game with Coach Monken as well after the game. So I want to thank everybody. Colonel Sam Houston calling in from Huntsville, Alabama, in the Beat Navy studio.
Yeah, beat Ball State. I don't even know what their mascot is. Just beat them.
Okay. And Richard Miller calling in from Florida. Thank you, Richard.
You're
And
welcome, Ken.
Okay, and thank you, Jack McGuirk. Appreciate your help today on our WVOX show and your good work following Navy and Air Force.
Thank you very much.
And Steve Chaloult, thank you so much. It's good to see you after the game at your tailgate out in the parking lot. And thank you for your insight and joining us tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and again, this is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio, our Week 5 Army football huddle. Enjoy the game. Watch Army play out at Ball State on Saturday. Take care. Night.
Good night.